Welcome to Fiery Femmes, the podcast where high achieving women build wealth, redesign their careers, and create lives with real freedom. I'm Sheena, an accredited investor, former tech sales professional, and the founder of Fiery Femmes. After a decade across global SaaS, startups, and my own reinventions, I realized the most powerful thing a woman can have is optionality. So, in every episode, we explore the future of work, the psychology of wealth, and the practical strategies that help women build careers and lives that evolve as fast as they do. Today's guest is Isis Nair. Isis has built an impressive career at the intersection of product, operations, and people. She's held senior roles at companies like Google and VGW, where she worked in fast-growth, high-pressure environments and saw firsthand what it takes to scale teams and businesses. Along her career, Isis is also an angel investor, which gives her a unique perspective on risk, long-term thinking, and how decisions compound over time. What makes Isis especially interesting is what she's doing now. After years in tech, she's transitioned into counseling, working directly with people, and the emotional side of work and success. In this conversation, we talk about career reinvention, how success can quietly come at a cost, and what happens when you start prioritizing inner sustainability alongside external achievement. I'm really looking forward to sharing this one with you. Let's get into it. I really am so excited for our episode today. There's a lot to cover. And obviously you being in tech for a while, being at Google, at VGW or virtual gaming worlds.
Yeah, that's right.
A lot of good products have come out of these two companies. So now you're an angel investor and a counselor in training?
Counselor in training, and I'm also working as a counselor in an organization now. Yeah, I know.
Amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, thanks.
So I think like in this podcast, a lot of people will find value in how you've navigated these changes, career pivots, obviously investing as well. So yeah, super excited to get into it.
Same, me too.
So when I look at your LinkedIn profile, I kind of know at a very professional level what you've done, but tell me something that's not on your LinkedIn profile.
Ooh, there's a lot of things. Okay, well, I suppose here's a controversial one, and then I'll give you an easy one. So I'm divorced, which, we don't put on our LinkedIn profile. So that's quite important. And I like going solo camping. So yeah, a lot, actually.
That is incredibly insane. I'm just thinking, what about the drop bears?
Yeah, people ask me all the time, like, how do you feel safe camping alone? And honestly, I've never felt more safe than when I camp alone than say I'm in the city. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's just in nature. People are there to have a good time.
Yeah, I do like the quiet, like well, it's not really quiet in nature anyway. There's like different sounds. Where is like your favorite place? What's the favorite place that you've solo camped before?
Ooh, so when I was doing backpack hiking, so I will use that as an example because there were some spectacular spots along the coast in Western Australia where I'm based, by the ocean. And it was really quiet because obviously you've got to hike in. So there's not many people there. And yeah, just getting up in the morning to sunrise at the ocean. There's no one around and it's by the mountain. It was incredible. Yeah, it's absolutely
Wow.
incredible. Yeah.
That is actually so nice. Like I've only camped a few times in my life, and
Yeah.
whenever I do, whenever I have, or it's just like that quiet, whether it's sunrise and all the
Yeah.
animals come to life, all those like music and sounds that you never normally hear. It's beautiful.
No, it was so stunning. Yeah.
And do you think that's something that has shaped the way that you've like navigated work or how you think about things? Like
Camping?
solo camping
Yeah.
especially.
Yeah, for sure. I think um, doing something that's scary, especially that everyone sort of tells you not to do, it's probably been a bit of a trademark in my life anyway. I like it when I'm challenged, when someone says, oh, you shouldn't do that. I'm like, really? I think I should do that now. So I'm a bit of a rebel. So I think being able to work out what you need to do to camp, be safe. And look, I'm not, one of those people with a four-wheel drive and all the incredible setup. I just wanted to be in nature. And so working all that out, is definitely a bit of a theme that I've done through life and career, is to go, okay, this is really hard and confusing. How am I going to do this? And then trying it out, like experimenting. Don't go on a 10-day trip, but go on. I used to go to a place an hour drive from here a few times, before I started to get the hang of it. And I would know what I forgot and what I didn't. And then I started getting a bit more adventurous and traveling further out. And yeah, so it's a similar thing, isn't it, that we do in life as well? Yeah.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing is you like proving other people wrong or just like rising to the challenge.
100%. Yeah, 100% both. Yeah.
Got it. I got it. Completely
Yeah.
agree with that. Well,
Yeah.
no, that sounds so fun. And I'd love to, I guess, like shift a little bit from that, which knowing that about you, that you like solo camping, like personally, I love meditating. I love going on solo trips.
Yeah.
Friends don't really understand it, which is fine, but I think it just gives you that time and that time to think and
Mm.
reflect without distractions and just you're so
Yeah.
comfortable with yourself as well. It does show.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. You need that. I think we are around people so much of our lives, and it's such a skill to be able to be on your own and not be lonely, actually reconnect with yourself. And I find nature just a beautiful place to do that. I feel protected by all the trees and the birds. I feel more connected to myself when I'm able to be in nature on my own. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I did hear from, this is like from maybe a post or something I've read before, that there's a reason why like we feel so energized after a thunderstorm. When we're near
Mm.
waterfalls and we're like in forest or in nature, like they have negative
Mm.
ions that just make us
Mhm.
feel like really connected and in some type of way.
Yeah, absolutely. I can understand. Yeah, I can absolutely relate to that. I mean, most people can relate to driving out of the city, getting into the country, and then breathing the fresh air. There's a lot of people, particularly if you live in Australia and, you drive out to the country and go, oh, this is what air's supposed to smell like. And at a very biological, physical level, there just is more oxygen and there's just more fresh air out there. So just that one ingredient makes it a better place to be, you know? And noises, like we are subjected to so much noise in the city that's quite stressful. So it puts a lot of stress on our system that's very mild that we don't know about. But again, as soon as you go out into nature, your nervous system resets. You're listening to noises that our bodies evolved to listen to, like, again, birds and water and wind in the trees. And yeah, I do think that that's what our body feels most comfortable.
Absolutely. And I actually think, because I
Mm.
know that we're going to be talking about like career shifts, identity shifts, I feel
Sure.
like, correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like, is it those thinking and of changing your career, your identity? Maybe they've happened in one of those camping trips. Can you tell us a little bit more about, I guess, that moving from VP level leadership into a different
Mhm.
chapter? What drove that decision? And I guess I feel like a lot of different things must have happened, but there's
Yeah.
always like a cherry on top or that has happened.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And with major life shifts, there's always multiple things that influence it, and generally over time, you would hope. It's not just to get up in the morning and go, you know what, I'm just going to abandon my entire 20 years of career in tech and I'm going to do something completely different. What I found as I moved into senior leadership roles is, as most senior leaders, or as most leaders can profess to, it becomes about mentoring people, correct? Like it
Yeah.
becomes about being with people, understanding their needs, and figuring out how can I best meet their needs and help them have a good experience in this job. If you're a good leader, I guess. It's not always the case. So as I found myself in those roles, I noticed that what I really enjoyed was that coaching, holding space, type of experience. And I actually noticed that I tended to be that person that even other senior leaders would come to. There was even in one of my previous organization a room that my boss named the therapy couch, and it was like, he would come and lie down on the couch and, we'd have a therapy session. But so it's in sort of scenarios like that, I thought I really want to dig deeper into people's lives. When someone comes to me and says, I'm scared about asking for a promotion, or I'm worried about doing this presentation, I really wanted to understand what's going on underneath it. And I wanted to step out of the manager role and advice role and just listen and understand where the fear is really coming from. So that, in short, is how I started to think, do you know what I really enjoy is doing that. I'm not sure I enjoy being in an industry which has increasingly grown to become so much more about money above everything else. So it was starting to test my values as well. So there's a lot there. And as a combination of all of those things, I decided that, I wanted to shift into a different type of career. And I had done enough in creating wealth that I felt I was in a very grateful, lucky position to be able to make that shift as well. So, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
short story.
How beautiful. Either transitioning out of tech and making those moves, making those changes. How did you redefine success beyond, I guess, like title and compensation? Was it hard to redefine? I know personally when I meet people, they would love to do it, but there's just so
Yeah.
much barriers.
Yeah. So I should say that, I never say it's been completely gone. So I still do talks at Curtin University, and I like to keep my foot in the industry, but
Same.
at least have the choice, like to be able to meaningfully engage in the industry when I want to, rather than feel like I have to. So I will never say that I'm completely out of it. And for sure, the organization I'm working in now, I'm involved in a lot of tech projects as well. But to answer your question directly, look, it's a lot of soul searching, and I won't say that I'm suddenly arrived at a place of nirvana where I feel completely comfortable with all of those things, right? I absolutely have lots of times and moments where I think, what the heck am I doing? Like, how I'm a single mom, I still have a mortgage, what am I doing? So it's, it plays on your mind a lot, but then, so that's the financial aspect of it. But the title, well, I think I actually never really cared for titles. I actually found them really annoying. And so I think maybe that's different to me, but I didn't find it, I found it a bit of an ego thing that I wasn't really relating to anyway. So that was probably not as hard. But the prestige, right? Like, that's different. And it's much easier to say I worked for Google and everyone's very impressed immediately than if I say I'm a counselor. Nobody's impressed. So that part, and being an immigrant child and growing up with parents saying, we want you to become successful. And that's what society thinks is successful. What I do now is social work, and social work is not considered successful by society's terms. So that still continues to challenge me. And I still find in conversation, I say to people, oh, I had a successful career in tech and now I'm doing this. So I'm still navigating those challenges. But ultimately, it came down to values and morals. So, I spent a long time closing my eyes, doing things because I had to. And, that voice inside that says, should you be doing this? And you swallow everything and you just keep going and you feel like you're getting eaten from the inside and you just keep ignoring it. That feeling just kept getting bigger and bigger to the point where I just couldn't ignore it anymore. And I knew that if I could make it possible for my family without impacting our life too much, that I really needed to follow this, at least for a little while, and see how I felt. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And there's such a shift as well in someone's demeanor and view of world and just their glow when you follow that voice. So well done.
Yeah, thanks.
I think there's something to be said. It's so incredible because that trajectory of being in like successful, super high pressure roles and then one becomes like a geese farmer. Like they basically like own like this geese farm so unrelated to what they were doing, which I think is incredible.
Yeah.
Um, and what would you say was um, the skills in product leadership that you've had that has helped you translate outside of tech?
Yeah, sure. Um, I think in terms of my career in tech, I have seen or been very lucky to be exposed to extremely challenging situations. So all of the analytical skills that you end up developing as a result of being in tech is incredibly useful anywhere you go. So even in the sort of social work counseling type of role that I'm in, there's a lot of analytical work. You've got to understand what clients need. You need to understand the bureaucracy. You need to understand how to make things efficient. So, I mean, I could talk for hours about the skills that are transferable, really. Most of it's transferable. So, but yeah, I'd say and learning how to deal with people. You just, it, there's no job where that's not useful. And I've had to deal with some very difficult people in my career, and that's definitely going to be coming very handy.
I can imagine. And I
Yeah.
remember you were in San Fran, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some Mountain View as well. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So I can imagine during that time you've met people from all different angles, location, and the work that you do in tech as an angel investor now as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you do. You meet a wide variety of people, and now I'm meeting even a wider variety of people. So yeah, it's very humbling and
Yeah,
beautiful.
absolutely. And what would you say? So I'm really interested to hear about the decision frameworks that you typically have or you do. Especially you mentioned that you've gathered this analytical skills and you've had a lot of difficult situations to face to handle.
Tell me
Probably
a bit more about
both.
what you.
I think probably
Yeah.
both when like you're presented with I guess like decisions that you have to make and
Mm,
both choices are great. Both
yeah.
choices are great. Like I don't know which one to
Mm,
choose. I don't want to say no to one because both of them are great.
yeah, it's a really good question. I think when I was younger, I would probably go off more. um, what are the pros and cons? Write down all the pros, write down all the cons, and those are still very valuable. And I would say, it's worth what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, all of those things from good old management consulting training. Um, but as I've gotten older, I'm testing my wisdom more and my instinct, and I think that instinct is accumulation of all of those bits of information anyway. Our brains are incredibly powerful. We take in a lot of data from our lives and we know what we need to do. We often just get in the way of doing it. And I think that's what I've found. I'll find reasons and excuses not to do the thing that every part of my body and my mind is saying this is the right thing to do. For example, when I made the decision to volunteer for a whole year last year, there were plenty of voices in my head that said, "This is ridiculous. What are you doing?" But I was burnt out. I was burnt out from executive roles in fast growth tech companies, which, as you know, are quite, you know,
Yeah.
it's it's hard work. Um, and I was burnt out and I was feeling really numb and didn't know how to proceed. So my brain wasn't even able to decide, but my body was definitely being very clear. It's like you need to take a break and what you need to do next will come as a result of being able to sit and absorb and go forward from there. So I suppose it's less of a framework in that sense and more of the do trust what your instincts are telling you, do trust what your body is telling you, and allow time to to let the answer come to you rather than forcing a decision because you feel you need an answer right now. If that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is definitely wisdom right there at play when you just not to make any rushed decisions coming from I guess like a frantic or forced place.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
Thanks.
And when we talk about, you mentioned earlier that you were divorced, and it's definitely not something that we put on our LinkedIn profiles. I wonder whether that's something that's coming up, or I don't know, with the dating apps and stuff.
Yeah, I believe it.
And I guess, and Bumble or other dating apps for like recruiting. I
Mm.
think there's a statistic of either 30% or 50% of marriages in Australia result in divorce.
Mm.
So let's talk about protecting wealth post divorce.
Mm.
What would you say in your experience? What were like the common financial blind spots that women face during major life transitions like this?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really passionate about this because I did feel like I was very blind. And I did have an ex-husband who's very kind and who's a feminist. And, not everyone can say that about their ex-partners. And we've got an amicable relationship. We co-parent our children. Having said all that, I find that in most relationships, and I'm pretty sure there's research to back this, the females tend to look after the micro side of the budget. So they look after the budget and the everyday spending, and the husbands tend to look after the macro level. And this is definitely my anecdotal experience with friends and talking to other people who are all professionals. That's what really got me is some of us were professionals in finance, and yet it was their partners that looked after it for whatever reason, right? And in reality, when I separated from him, I found that suddenly I'm the person that has to look after all of this, and my knowledge was really lacking. So, one thing I would say, even for women who are still in marriages, is to protect your, not just marriages, but any sort of long term financial, long term romantic relationship. Where you're living together perhaps and your finances are intermingled, then to actually look out for yourself. And that's not a selfish thing. It's not a unromantic thing to have your own bank account. That's what some of the things the society tells you. It's like, oh no, but that's so unromantic if you don't combine everything and not worry about, like, so all of those things. So it's not actually practical. It doesn't make sense. We know that women have a lot less in their superannuation funds than men do. Many women become homeless when they get divorced, especially in their 50s and 60s. We know this for a fact. So why is this happening? And I think it's because we're not brave enough to say, hey, what does your finance look like? What do your superannuation contributions look like, particularly if you have children? So I would say take control of your finances, do your own research. We've got AI now, so it's like there's no excuse. Talk to financial advisors and be brave in taking control of it before anything happens. And hopefully it doesn't, but as you said, more than 30 to 50%. So and then for me personally, my financial advisor was everything when I separated. She even helped me with separating my assets after divorce because she was a single mom who built her own business. And so she was fantastic. So I would say they're absolutely worth their weight in gold. And there's a lot of concern around making sure you get a financial advisor that's not going to rip you off. And there's a bit of bad I'm not sure what the word is, but yeah, like people can get concerned about bad financial advisors, which is absolutely true. So I would say talk to your friends, talk to your colleagues, and get recommendations and interview a bunch of people. Go to LinkedIn, search for them. Many of them have, videos and posts, and you get to see who they are. There's a lot of great female financial advisors. Contact them, ask for a chat. Do it just like how you would hire anybody else, and do your research on what you need to know. But I'd say there's a lot of things that I did, but that's one of the things that was really helpful for my financial health. Yeah.
That's so good. We're actually interviewing a financial advisor in the next few days, and I'm so excited because
Right.
she's
Good.
also focused on tech. So she
Okay.
knows the complications and all these things. So I'm really glad that you pointed that out. I'm also a big
Amazing.
fan of them. But yeah, they
Yeah.
do get a bad
Good. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. Bad rap. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, they get a bad rap, but yeah, I think a lot of people on the internet are like, oh, just do it yourself.
Yes.
But at the same time, I pay for peace of mind.
Yep.
fast information and access, I can just like call them if this is a
Yeah.
question that I have.
And I say to people, do you cut your own hair? Some people do, sure. Maybe they're not the target audience here. But, do you tend to cut your own hair? Most people say, no, I wouldn't do that. So why would you try to manage something so important yourself? So, yeah. But as you say, there's a lot of people that say, oh, that's a waste of money and you can get someone to do it, or it's for rich people. But yeah, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, completely agree. We're all for financial advisors, and Isis, when you were either going through divorce or after divorce, what were the mindset shifts around autonomy, leverage, and long term security that you had to either reframe or think about?
Well, I definitely had to think about, how do I continue to save money when there's only one income? And I had to stay in an expensive area in Perth because that's where my children were in school. So I didn't have the option to really downsize massively. So it was a huge financial burden, really, when you don't have a second income helping. I think one of the things I'm really passionate about is equity. So I know that equity is not something that's possible in many industries, but since we're talking about tech, in most tech companies, and I'd probably go as far as to say in a lot of other organizations too, particularly that are perhaps not established,
Mm-hmm.
you can ask for equity or shares, and maybe that's a word that's not familiar to people, but equity is essentially ownership in a company, even the tiniest bit of ownership. And in young companies that are not listed on the stock market, or old companies that refuse to list on the stock market, you can still get what they call ESOP, which stands for, I think, Employment Share
Sure.
Option Plan. Yeah,
Yeah.
employment share option plan. So many organizations have ESOP. Here's the thing, they reserve it for their executives. Almost any executive in any tech company would have shares in the company. They don't give it to other employees, generally speaking, but that doesn't stop you from negotiating that. And that is what I would say, that I would encourage anyone that works for any organization to say, hey, is there a possibility to earn some equity in your organization, whether it's through tenure or performance, or I take a salary cut,
Yeah.
essentially? Because then you're investing in the long-term prospect of that company, and hopefully you get a part of that profit. Otherwise, all you're getting is a salary. So that's just, again, the short version
Perfect. Thank you.
of, yeah.
That's such an interesting thinking because a lot of people will always want like the higher salary, higher salary. They go up the ranks, higher salary, but never talk about equity or even ask for equity.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of equity. Obviously, it's a risk at play, you know,
Yep.
but
Yep.
100% like with the equity, even just asking for equity.
Yeah.
Yeah, most people don't ask.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that BHP, Rio Tinto, all of the large mining companies, oil and gas, and Perth do that as well. So it's not just sort of reserved to small companies, but I would say if you don't ask, you don't find out. And look, it's not in everyone's risk portfolio. So if you're going back to the financial advisor, a good one, should be able to sit down with you and go, oh, what level of risk are you willing to take? What's acceptable to you? So it really depends on how comfortable you are taking risk. And if someone who's very low on the risk side might say, no, I just want a salary. I don't want any sort of future kind of, I don't know what's going to happen scenario. I know the money I'm getting today. And that's all I want. That's fine. So it's also like, and again, you can go online and take surveys to understand what your risk portfolio looks like as well. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. We can totally do that. I'm gonna link something here so people can have a look.
Yeah.
Someone told me that to gauge your risk portfolio, almost like it's just a very quick test. Whether you have a healthy risk profile or risk appetite is ask yourself, how do you feel about working for 2 years and not taking a salary?
Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if your answer is absolutely not, heavy no, that is not for me, that kind of tells you where your risk appetite is at, which is fair.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And look, I mean, I would say someone who says yes to that is very high on the end of the risk spectrum. And I would say I would definitely not have said yes to that. So that's why I like the idea of negotiating equity and salary. Because, or sometimes, because then you're still getting pay. And again, as a divorced mom, I absolutely needed the pay to pay the bills. I couldn't afford to do that at that time. So there is like, yeah, that's the in between. And if you negotiate performance bonuses in this, in the way of equity, then you're not missing out on anything. So say someone offers you 150K salary, you say, okay, that's great. But what if I go above expectations in the next quarter? What are your options then? And they might say, well, we don't do that. Oh, well, would you consider doing that? And how about you just reward me in shares? So there's not a huge financial cost to your company off the bottom line. So from a tax perspective, it's good for them as well, generally speaking. But you got to ask these questions. Otherwise, yeah, how
I
do you
love
get these things?
this is such a wisdom nugget, if you may. I think the listeners are going to get a lot of value from just like from this the last 2 minutes. And would you say that having the equity piece, that those conversations did that happen before divorce or after divorce?
Oh, for me personally,
Yeah.
actually, no, when we were still married, it was kind of obvious that he was more the person that was less on the risk, like his risk profile was low, and I was definitely the one willing to take more risks. So we did talk about doing that. And there were definitely movements towards it. I was aware of these things, but I didn't get as strong willed and strong minded about this till I was separated. And I knew that I had no time to waste and I can't mess around anymore. I've got to look after myself and my children. But B, I was free. I was free to make whatever financial decision I wanted. I didn't have to check with someone else. I can, if I wanted to take a high risk, I could, because the only consequence is really to me. So, and my kids, but you know, I knew enough about these things to do that carefully. I'm not a gambler. So, yeah, I think that really, really shifted the way I thought about how I set myself up for the future.
That's amazing. And good to hear as well, because yeah, definitely. What I think whenever I'm making decisions, it's great. I'm like, oh my God, oh, I have to consult with someone. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
definitely good to be able to have that financial autonomy again. And what would you say, Isis, are conversations that women need to think about, or what conversations should women be having earlier than they think, especially in terms of relationships and obviously around like divorce, all that kind of thing, even before that happens, and obviously hopefully it doesn't happen, but what conversations do you think women should be having earlier?
Conversations with their partner or conversations with their friends? What do you
Probably
mean?
with their partner.
Yeah, I think times have changed now, I hope. When I met my husband when I was 21, which is a while ago now, it was different. You know, there wasn't as much, say, liberation. I really hope that my children's generation, and I've got two daughters and they're both teenagers, are willing to have these kind of conversations early on. I think it's conversations around what's your attitude to money? What's your risk profile? What do you think about, buying a house versus investing in shares? You know, what's your interest in the stock market? How much do you want to save versus not? What does that look like? Are you willing to compromise your lifestyle for money? Because here's something that I say to my girls all the time, because like I said, we live in a relatively wealthy area, so they think that they need to make lots and lots of money and, you know, buy a big house, things like that. And I say to them, like, there is a huge cost to going into professions and careers where you're city bound. So those are the kind of conversations that I have with them to say, if you pick a career that allows you to work in the country, in a remote town, in the city, etc., it might give you more freedom, and you might actually have lower cost of living, and therefore you might inevitably save more. So you've got to ask yourself these questions. Do you really want to be tied down to a city, in a nice suburb? It's not necessary to have a happy, enjoyable life. So these are the questions that I think would be helpful to have when you start a relationship, is to say, well, not what are your long-term goals? I feel like that's such a boring question. But
Yeah.
yeah, what's important to you with these things?
Yeah, definitely. And I think like when people ask, what are your long-term goals? It's like, wait, whose office am I at?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Wow. Is this like interview question? Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Um, okay, cool. So that's really interesting because I've noticed that people who have stayed, I've lived in a very rural part of Australia, like the outback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we stayed there for like 2 years, and
Wow.
that enabled my parents, like we migrated from the Philippines. That
Mm,
those 2 years, I think mainly because there's such low expenses because there's nothing to buy or nothing
mm.
to spend your money on, that enabled them to save for a house pretty quickly. And looking back now, it's like, oh my God, they saved for a house for like within 2 years of
Yeah.
being in Australia. Like that's huge.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what my parents did as well. My mum worked in all of these rural locations, as a teacher, and you get, the house paid for, etc. when you're there. So you're not spending a lot of money, and they managed to save as well and was able to buy a house that way. Exactly. But it's not for everybody, but I think it's important to think about these things.
Yeah, what a hack, hey? So you 2 or 3 years, short term, you live in the country wherever, because that's
Yeah.
basically you get subsidized your rent, your electricity bills, your
Yeah.
relocational bonus and allowances. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it's
what a
possible.
hack.
And in Australia, in West Australia, a lot of people do FIFO, which is the fly in and fly out jobs, which pay, you know, huge salaries for fairly low skilled work sometimes. And if it's a little bit high skilled, you get even more. I mean, order of magnitudes more. But it's a difficult life. It's not easy. But if you can do it for a few years, you could be set up well financially.
Yeah, definitely. The town that I lived in, I don't know if I told you, it's called Port Hedland.
Oh, yeah, that's a FIFO town. Yeah.
It's a FIFO town, and yeah, definitely. Like now, I know why. I guess
Ah,
you know
yeah.
why. Like they
Yeah.
got paid quite a bit,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, definitely a hack.
totally.
And I wanted to talk to you about something that I haven't really wrapped my head around, which is the self-managed super fund.
Yeah, yeah.
It's definitely something that's been talked about, and I'm just like, for me personally, I feel like it's a lot of admin. When does it make sense and when it doesn't?
Okay, so I don't know a lot about self-managed super funds, but I will tell you why I have one and the specific reason why I chose it as the vehicle. And there's lots of reasons to do it and not do it. Again, it's probably a good question for the financial advisor to explore in more detail, but I'll tell you just my specific angle. So when I started angel investing, and the reason I started angel investing is I really wanted to be able to support women and causes and issues that I cared about from a venture capital perspective. I thought if I don't put my money where my mouth is, nothing gets done. And I wanted to be in those spaces, influencing those decisions, where there are very few women have been a minority, as we know. So I did it for more important reasons than just I hope I can make a lot of money from this. I think it's really important to distinguish because I'm not entirely sure that you will make a lot of money from it versus say investing in the housing market in Australia right now. So that's why I want to distinguish that to say I'm not encouraging anyone to do it as a way to make millions of dollars. You got to do it for the right reasons. So that's why I started angel investing. And you need to have a sophisticated investor's license. So you might want to put in some information about what that means. And yeah, I won't go into what that means here, but you do need to have a bit of a license to do that. Or certificate. I don't know if it's
It's a
sophisticated investor
it,
certification, I think it
it's a
is. Yeah.
certification, yeah. So
Yeah. Not license. Yeah.
you basically ask your accountant to, hey, do I certify for this? And then they produce a certificate
Certificate.
just
That's
to
right.
say you can invest in these funds.
Yeah, and it often is there's a criteria for it. You need to have a certain number of assets or a certain salary, or there's other ways like you can do a education course if you're eligible. So there's a lot to it. If you're interested in if your audience is interested in angel investing, there's a lot of information out there. I would say go to Aussie Angels. They're fantastic, run by an awesome female. Cheryl is
Yeah,
great.
Cheryl.
Yeah, go Cheryl. So yeah, Aussie Angels has lots and lots of information on this. But I started investing with my own money. And then I soon realized, and a few friends actually suggested to me, they said, if you want to take this a little bit further, you could invest with your superannuation money. And that means, obviously, you're not going to see any returns till retirement age. But it means you're tapping into a pool of money that's going to be sitting there anyway, and you don't need access to right now. And I thought, well, with these sort of investing, with this sort of investing, you tend to go wait long term anyway. So I'm not going to, put it in and want to take it out tomorrow. I'm expecting that it'll take 10 plus years to see any returns. That's what angel investing is all about. You invest in something really, really small, and then it hopefully becomes a Canva or a Google, one of them of 20 in probably 10, 15 years' time. So it's quite patient capital. And so that's why I started looking into a self-managed super fund. But everyone that I spoke to said it's very arduous from an accounting perspective. It costs a lot. But there are some fantastic startups out there that do this for you. So Stake is one that I use. And I'd always say to your listeners, do your own research,
Yeah.
all of those things. But I've had good experience with Stake. They manage everything for you in terms of the accounting, the paperwork. It was completely seamless. The customer service is great. You pay a fee every year, and I don't want to say what the fee is because I can't remember exactly what it is anymore. But it's actually works out cheaper than if you use an accountant and do it all yourself. So they're quite price conscious. And I'm sure there's pros and cons to using Stake versus an accountant, but I found it for my purposes really great. So now that I have my money in a self-managed super fund environment, it means essentially all that means is I now can manage my super money the way I want rather than a superannuation fund investing it for me, which they tend to invest it in, index funds essentially, which is the safe option for 99% of the people. Because managing your own super fund assumes that you know what you're doing a little bit and that you're willing to take on the risk because it is your super money. You don't want to put that into a whole lot of Bitcoin and, come retirement age, you have nothing. So you've got to be really careful if that's the choice you make and do it very consciously, essentially.
Yeah. I met this VC, and he basically said he actually invested, like angel invested into 100 companies,
Mm-hmm.
and only six made it, gave him like some sort of profit. And out of those six, it's, I don't know, one or two that really like 20x the capital. So
Wow.
definitely something to think about when I'm doing angel investing. I mean,
Yeah.
I have a few angel investments through Aussie Angels as well, and
Yeah.
different funds. And the beauty about them is they pool the capital instead of you just choosing, like, there's a few that I've just chosen like one company, but I
Yeah.
like being in a, I guess, like a grouped pooled money.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's some fantastic ways of getting in, even if you don't have. I mean, that's the other thing that people think that you need truckloads of cash to get into these funds, but you don't because there's vehicles to do it, where you can just invest a small amount that is the appropriate amount for your assets.
Yeah, definitely. I remembered, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna share this. I think the first investment that I've done was through virtual,
Oh
and
yes.
it was like $1,000.
Yeah.
And I still get updates. It's a company that I believe in. It's in food tech, and yeah, I still get updates. They're still alive, and I'm just like, there's like a few more years. We'll see.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, same. I invested in a chocolate company. I'm trying to, it was a Living Earth or Loving Loving Earth. It's a beautiful chocolate company. I'd say I invested $500 through Birchall, and then I ended up investing in Birchall itself when they started raising. So yeah, in
Well
their first
done.
round, because I really I love Birchall as a platform, which is democratizing investing, I think, and really helping with the small businesses as well. So yeah, big fan
Yeah.
of those guys.
Shout out to Virtual.
Hmm.
And yeah, because I think someone asked me about it of like, hey, how did you even become comfortable of the thought of deploying capital and you don't know whether is it ever going to come back, or if it's going to come back, it's like in
Yeah,
10 years, if it will. So yeah,
yeah.
definitely good to get your foot in the door. And would love to hear your thoughts on how women should think about, I guess, decision making during periods of change, especially when thinking about self managed super funds. Yeah, is that something that you would recommend for them to think about if going through periods of change, or maybe not?
No, no, I would not. I would say, like I said, the SMSF was specifically so I could do more angel investing. And I think, as if I was going to speak to the general female audience, I would say don't try to do any of these things without the advice of a financial advisor, because you don't know enough about it. I say to people, invest in what you know and you understand. And for most people, that's just a index fund. So actually, here's what I say to all my friends who are quite new to investing. They're very scared. I mean, I don't. You probably have the same experience. You talk to people, use the word investing. Everyone gets really scared. They think that it means, stock market crash. Basically, it means putting it into something in the stock market, into one company, and you lose all your money. So I would say, if you want to get into investing, use apps that help you get into it in small amounts. Like Raise is a good one. RAIZ. That's how we started. That's what we did. You did the
Same.
same thing? Yeah.
Yeah, I started with Raise, and then they had such a good concept at the time.
The
It's the same.
roundups.
Yeah, it's the same as
Yeah.
Acorns, right? Acorns
Yeah.
was their first name.
Acorns was the first, yeah, and then they became Raise. Yeah. And so I love that concept of roundups. And that's what I say to people, and most people don't know that they can do that. And roundups, for your listeners, is essentially this concept where for every transaction that you make in your account, Raise or another app rounds the transaction to the next dollar and then invests that into a fund. So if you paid 50 cents for a coffee, 50 cents of that goes into a fund. And so you actually almost don't even notice it, that it's coming out of your account. That's what I really like. It's like basically putting your spare change into a piggy bank. And before you know it, you have a pot. So it's a really light way to get into investing. And apps like Raise invests in indexes. So that's a collection of companies. So your risk is really low overall. What worries me about when people talk about stock market investing is that the folks that say, "Oh, you should go put $10,000 into BHP. They're doing really well right now." That's what worries me. That's not what I would recommend. Is actually, if you're new to investing, is to actually invest in index funds that are a large pool of companies, hundreds and hundreds of companies. So if one goes down, the other goes up. You're just growing at the rate of the stock market. And it does feel complicated, even as I try to explain it right now. I can understand why people think, "Oh, I'll just buy a house, I'll buy 6 investment properties."
Oh
And
my God.
I know.
But I feel like houses
Yeah.
actually are more complicated.
Houses are more risky because you're now usually using debt, and it's a very large pool of money. But Australia does have an obsession with houses, and I think it's in the general narrative. So people talk about it more. They think they understand it more. Think being the word here, and therefore they feel more comfortable putting their money into it. Whereas stock market still feels a bit foreign, though not as much as it used to be, based on statistics. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm loving the statistics that there's a lot of, women investors now, and younger people are getting into the stock market more. I guess purely because like having a house is a bit unattainable for the younger generation, which is sad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we'll see what the future holds.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And thinking about, I guess I'm such a big fan of diversification. So like building the house of stocks, we'll say. I've learned diversification through the hard way. I know a lot of people who, beyond having like shares of the company that they work at, they don't really invest outside.
Mm.
So basically, yeah, there's just like one stock that's 99% of their portfolio.
Yeah.
When did you learn about diversification and how do you, I guess, practice it?
I probably learned it about it at a young age. Like I said, my ex-husband was really interested in investing and read every book on Warren Buffett. And so perhaps a little bit through him, but yeah, I don't remember exactly when it was and how, but I did learn a bit about it. And I suppose in the simplest ways, it's not about putting all your eggs in one basket. And that whole metaphor just means if that basket falls and crashes, you lose all your eggs. So if you've got multiple baskets, then you can afford to lose some. And I think that's the trick. That's the problem with the Australian way of thinking about money, of putting everything into a house, paying off the house. Um, and there are experts who speak about this. And I have to say, actually, Barefoot Investor really saved my life. In my very early 20s, I read his book back before he became a viral sensation. I read his first book. And I cut up my credit cards because I got my first full-time job at 20 and I was earning a grand $35,000 a year. And I thought this was an enormous amount of money. And so I thought, I can go shopping now. I can buy all the clothes. And sure enough, I had a credit card debt and that I was struggling to pay off. And I'm sure this is something a lot of people can relate to. So something that I did was, yeah, read Barefoot Investor, followed everything that he said. I still have the little buckets of money, even to this day, that he recommends. I cut up all my credit cards and I've never owned a credit card since. So
Wow.
that's I always use my debit card. I don't even have a credit card for emergencies. I've just decided I don't need that temptation in my life. If I can't afford it, I don't buy it. It's as simple as that.
Isis,
Yeah.
that is some real wealth. To be able to just like buy things in cash, well done. That is something that like most people should practice. I think most people do live off credit.
Yeah, yeah, which is scary. Yeah, just quite scary. Yeah.
Yeah. And I would actually say, like, knowing that about you now, that's probably one of the key behaviors and the key anchors that's enabled you to, like, you know what, executive roles, this high stress, high paying job is great, but not for me anymore. But one
Mhm.
of the key things why you're able to do that is from a very young age, you have no credit cards, therefore probably very little debt, if any.
Yeah, no, the only debt I have is obviously the house because I mean, that's a debt a lot of people have. Um, yeah, I just it didn't sit comfortably with me. The interest rates they charge you, how easily you're caught into the trap of being able to buy something that you can't really tell. Like our brains are not very good at knowing whether we can afford something or not if we've got this permanent loan at our disposal, you know. So you've got to understand the limitations of human biology, and that's what I try to operate with. I'm like, I'm not good at doing that, so therefore what can I do to stop myself? For example, I know I will check my phone if it's in my bedroom. My phone charges outside in the living room, and it has done for years. And the minute that I charge my phone in my bedroom, this is the first thing I look up in the morning. So I've gone, why am I struggling with this? I know that the phones are smarter than I am and making me addicted to it. So I'm just going to not do it. It's the same thing, you know, it comes to food, it comes to exercise. You got to accept your limitations as a human and work with it. Atomic Habits is a fantastic book by James Clear that I recommend for people who want to get a sense for these things, you know, how to set up good habits essentially. Yeah.
Yeah, Very good reminder. I've had that habit of like leaving my phone outside of the room, the charge outside. I even have like a box that's like timed for when like the phone thing gets really bad. But
Yeah.
I think the end of last year, I got this habit of taking it in the room. And it was
Mm.
so bad. It was terrible.
Yeah. It's so quick. It's so easy to do. I find that it's very easy to fall back into the habits that don't serve you. I don't like saying like bad habits so much because again, it puts the onus on it. It's sort of it's shaming. It's like I'm a bad person, but I say to my kids, I'm like, I know the software is so addictive. There's trillions of dollars being spent on making this thing addictive. What chance do you have? So we've got to kind of put a wall in front of it, and go, well, I'm not going to allow you to take over my psyche,
Yeah.
essentially. But we're human, we fail, it's okay. It's okay if you do end up taking it into your bedroom, just start again the next day. I also believe in that. I don't believe in like shaming yourself or being too self-critical. Just start over. It's cool. It's another day.
I agree. And I, because most people do struggle with their relationship with their phones, and I always say, like, these companies literally spend billions of dollars to get you hooked onto the phone. It is
Yeah.
not your fault. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, totally. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Isis, this has been an incredible conversation. We've covered a lot of ground, from divorce to going solo camping, angel investing lens, and building wealth through asking for equity, and the different risks as well. I'd love to, I guess, like end this
Mhm.
and this on the question that you've been in tech for a while now and you've seen the changes all
Yeah.
around. I'm sure from
Mm,
Mountain View times to now, it's very
mm,
different. What advice would you give to 20-year-olds today?
mm. Um, I've been thinking about what's needed in society right now for a long time. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, particularly because a lot of people asked me about artificial intelligence and what that means. And kind of grateful we didn't talk about it today because we talk
Ah,
about it all the time,
wow.
right? Um, But I actually think in the world that we're going forward, where it's more and more taken over by technology, and technology is quite a big part of our life, if not an intrusive part of our life, I would say the key thing to develop is empathy. If more people 20-year-olds of all genders, all shapes, every background, if you can really look into what empathy really means and develop it as a skill, I think it's going to serve you so well into the future. The one thing that people love about ChatGPT is that it's empathetic. It doesn't shame you. It says, "Oh gosh, that must be hard. Wow, yeah, that's understandable you feel that way." I mean, it is literally giving you empathy. So why do we as humans, when we listen to people say something, why is our first reaction not, "Oh, that sounds really hard. I can't imagine what that must have been like," instead of jumping straight into, "Let me give you some solutions." So I think if a 20-year-old working in tech, working anywhere really, particularly in tech, because I think there's a lack of it in tech specifically, that empathy is a powerful tool. It's not something to be ashamed of if you're an empathetic person naturally. And if you're not, learn from that, because I actually think it's as important as your leadership skills, your analytical skills, your ability to do spreadsheets. I really, really believe in that. So there you go.
That's so beautiful. And I really like the fact that it took us this long to even bring up AI. That is great. I
Yeah,
actually,
sure.
I definitely think there's something to be said about such a disconnect with how people are hyping up AI so much. And now, like the businesses that I advise in, they can't even implement AI properly. So
Yeah,
there's
that's
a lot of
interesting.
investments, a lot of hype, but no one's really
Yeah.
using it.
Yeah, that's quite typical of technology, isn't it? Like the people that invent the technology and fund it are just miles ahead of the people that are using it. I mean, the organization I work for uses an access database. I mean, I don't even know if you remember that. That is a very ancient database technology. So there's a real disconnect between the inventors and the people on the ground who need to use it. And I've noticed this in most technological revolutions, and AI is taking it to a whole other level. But I agree with you. There's a gap there of what do people need.
Yeah, maybe we'll see it in 5 to 10 years' time.
It'll be an interesting time to watch and learn.
No, and Isis, what is something that you would stop telling young women in tech?
Oh, stop telling. To be more like men. I think it's unfortunately it's still prevalent. It was when I was 20. It's still, this whole, but this may sound controversial and I hope it does because I hate it when people say, don't say sorry so much. Because I think to myself, why don't you say sorry more? Like it's this, and that's just an example of telling women not to do. Women are always said, oh, don't be like this. Don't say sorry. Basically be less you and be more man is what I hear a lot. Don't cry. Don't show emotion. That's going to make you look weak. These are all the things. So I think actually just stop telling women to stop doing things, and start saying start telling men what more they should do. Be more sorry, be empathetic. It's okay to cry. It's okay to say, I'm feeling, but let me tell you something. I'm working in an organization full of middle-aged women, and it is mind-blowingly amazing. They are
Wow.
incredible because the EQ, the emotional intelligence in the room is so high. People turn up and quite easily say, oh, I had terrible sleep. I feel so grumpy today. And people say that first thing in the morning, and it's completely accepted. It's like, what can we do to make your day easier for you today? It's so refreshing. So that's what I wish for all organizations. And I think it'll serve men so well if they had the opportunity to do that. It's a good thing for everyone, I believe. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Well, thank you for that. I'm sure a
Yeah.
lot of people will find it very useful. And knowing what I know now as well about like women, our biology, our cycles, yeah, like 100% stop telling us what to do or how to feel.
Yeah,
Um,
totally.
so
Yeah.
Isis, thank you so much for being in the pod.
Yeah.
I can't wait to release the episodes. And yeah, is there anything that how can we support you or any I guess like project that you're currently doing?
Oh, no, nothing at all. I'm just really grateful to be here, and I really appreciate your time and your very insightful questions. And yeah, it's been a real pleasure to have this conversation. So yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to another episode of Fiery Femmes. If this resonated, share it with a woman in your life because we rise higher when we rise together. Don't forget to follow and review. It helps more women access the tools and conversations that build wealth and confidence. For more career and financial empowerment, come hang out on Instagram and YouTube at Fiery Femmes. I'll see you in the next episode.